The original Indiana Jones trilogy is regarded by many to be one of the most iconic series in all of American cinema. So when a follow-up movie was planned to be released nearly 20 years later in 2008, it was met with a mix of anticipation and dread. This movie, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, starred Harrison Ford reprising his role as Indiana Jones, and it introduces us to Shia Labeouf as Mutt Williams, who falls into the role of Indy's sidekick and turns out to be, spoiler alert, in case anyone is really concerned about having a 12-year-old movie spoiled for them, Indiana Jones' son. As one might expect, it turned out to be a pretty divisive movie, making its way onto both best of and worst of lists, with a number of fans considering Mutt Williams to be the Jar Jar Binks of the series, and Shia LaBeouf going as far as to apologize for his acting in the movie and say that Steven Spielberg dropped the ball. So why would I bring up such a regrettable film so long after the fact? Let's take a look at the ending. Indiana Jones gets married to Marion with Mutt in attendance. All of a sudden, the door blows open and the wind brings Indiana Jones's hat to Mutt's feet. Mutt picks it up. Is this some kind of a passing of the torch moment? Not so fast. Indy takes his hat back and says, "In your dreams, kid." Everyone has a good laugh, roll credits. You remember that, right? But if you watch the scene now, Indiana Jones never actually says the line, "In your dreams, kid." And in any version of this movie that you can find right now on Netflix, Blu-ray, DVD, Indiana Jones will not say this line. In fact, it appears that the line was edited out of the film after the opening weekend. An Instagram user named Photoshop Django brought this to my attention recently. In his message, Django claimed that he saw the movie opening weekend. A few weeks later, he talks to his friend who had seen it then, and they talk about their feelings about the movie, criticism, saying that they kind of had mixed feelings about it. And then Django asks his friend what he thought about the ending of the movie, in particular when Indiana Jones takes his hat back and says, "In your dreams, kid." To which the friend responds, Indiana Jones never said that. He just took his hat and left. Django waits for the DVD to come out, and finally he gets it, watches it with his girlfriend, and the line isn't there. At this point, he assumes that he just misremembered it and the line wasn't actually in the movie. That's what he thought for years, until recently he came across a thread on Something Awful. In this thread, people are talking about things that they remember that nobody else seems to remember, and one of the things that gets brought up is the line, "In your dreams, kid." It wasn't just Django, several people remember seeing this, yet when they go back and look, it's not there. So what's going on here? Is this some kind of Mandela effect thing? Are people remembering the movie incorrectly? Are they all lying? Well, there is some evidence pointing to the fact that this line was in the movie originally. In particular, there exists a novelization of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and in this novelization, there's a very similar line. On his YouTube channel, Django, aka Josh Van Valkenburg, edited together the movie scene with the audiobook version of the novelization. Here's how it plays out.
"Not today, kid."
Although it's possible, I doubt that whoever was behind this novelization just took it upon themselves to add a line. Especially when you're dealing with the work of someone who is as precious about their characters as George Lucas is. And George Lucas's involvement is another indicator that it's very possible this was simply changed after release. I'm hard-pressed to think of anybody who is more infamous for tweaking their work after it's already out than George Lucas. And granted, George Lucas only wrote the story to this film and it was directed by Steven Spielberg. In interviews about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Steven Spielberg said that he would always defer to George Lucas when it comes to things to do with the story. And I can absolutely see why George Lucas would want to change something like this. Although it's just a joke and it's 100% in character for Indiana Jones, it can be perceived as kinda burying Mutt Triple H style. And that's no good if you want to potentially build this character up and eventually pass the torch to them to continue the series. Although by now, with the power of hindsight, it's been confirmed that Mutt, the Jar Jar Binks of the Indiana Jones series, will not be returning for the planned sequel. But anyway, all we really have to go with by now is guesswork and people going off their memories, which can be faulty. We need some solid proof that this line actually happened. And there's a few ways that we could potentially get it. For starters, the easiest but also most difficult way to go about confirming this would be to simply get somebody like Steven Spielberg or George Lucas or Harrison Ford to confirm it. And thinking about that, I can only think of Harrison Ford's disdain for this type of fanboy question just welling up inside of him. But there's also a possibility that there may have been stand-ins or crew members working that day who might have held on to their sides, in which case that line would be on the sides if it were real. But if nobody on the inside would confirm it, perhaps what we can do is find an old version of the film. What Photoshop Django has been doing is trying to find old cam rips from the opening weekend. Although he did manage to find a few torrents of cam rips, there were no seeders because who in their right mind would be watching a cam rip of a movie that's been out for 12 years? But I do think there is another way to dig up an old version of the film. You see, in 2008, when this movie came out, bootleg DVDs were still really common. Everybody had that lady with the shopping cart in their neighborhood. DVD. If a cam rip existed from this opening weekend, it's very possible that that version of the movie found its way onto one of those bootleg DVDs. And there's a lot of people who never throw anything away. I'm pretty sure I have a bootleg Superbad sitting around somewhere. So, if any of you happen to have an old bootleg DVD of Indiana Jones, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, check the ending and see if he says the line. But anyway, that's all for now. If you like this video, you'll probably like my video about the missing farm game. I'm out of here.